March 17, 1943. The North Atlantic, 400 miles south of Iceland. This is the killing ground. Convoy HX-229, a sprawling city of 41 merchant ships, plows through monstrous 15-foot swells. They are laden with 140,000 tons of cargo food, fuel, steel, and weapons, the literal lifeblood bound for a besieged Britain. In the galley of the SS William Eustace, a standard-issue Liberty ship, 28-year-old ship's cook Tommy Lawson washes dishes, bracing himself as the vessel rolls violently. He is just a cook, paid to make breakfast, not history. Above him on the freezing bridge, Captain James Bannerman scans the black horizon with binoculars, his knuckles white. He knows what is coming. The U-boats are out there. They are not just hunting. They are listening. Beneath the storm-tossed waves, just 600 yards off the Convoy's port beam, Captain Lieutenant Helmut Mansack sits in the cramped, pressurized control room of U-758. His hydrophone operator, a young sailor with headphones pressed tight to his ears, whispers with a chilling calm, "Contact, bearing 280. Multiple screws. Heavy machinery noise. Estimate 40 vessels." Mansack smiles. The trap is set. He gives the order. Wolfpack positions, target the convoy. What none of them know, not Captain Bannerman bracing for the inevitable torpedo, not Captain Lieutenant Mansack anticipating his neck sinking, is that Tommy Lawson, the man washing dishes, has noticed something strange. Something about the way Liberty ships sound underwater. Something that will change the entire battle of the Atlantic. Over the next 6 days, the ocean will turn to fire. 22 merchant ships from Convoys HX-229 and SC-122 will sink beneath the frigid North Atlantic, taking 300 merchant seamen to the bottom. It is the worst convoy disaster since 1942. Admiral Karl Donitz, commander of Germany's U-boat fleet, will call it the greatest convoy battle of all time. The numbers tell a devastating story. In March 1943 alone, U-boats sink 567,000 tons of Allied shipping, more than in any previous month of the war. At these current loss rates, Britain has just 3 months of food supplies left. The nation is starving. Prime Minister Winston Churchill will later write, "The only thing that really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril. The problem is technology. German hydrophone technology is brutally, terrifyingly effective. A U-boat can hear the combined propeller noise of a convoy from 80 nautical miles away. A single merchant ship betrays its exact position from up to 12 miles distant. The distinctive sound signature, cavitating propellers, loud engine vibrations, the resonance of the entire hull acts like a massive sonic beacon, guiding German torpedoes to their targets. The Allied escort vessels try everything. They sail in zigzag patterns. They maintain strict radio silence. They sweep the black water with their Aztec sonar. But nothing works. The convoys are simply too loud. The ocean, a perfect medium for sound, carries their presence for miles. And the U-boats, hunting in wolfpacks, simply sit silent at 400 feet, listening, waiting for the perfect firing position. What the Allies do not know is that the solution will come not from a naval engineer or an acoustic scientist, but from a merchant ship cook who dropped out of school at 14. Naval Headquarters, Liverpool, England. March 1943. The men of Western Approach's command have been fighting the U-boat peril for 3.5 bloody years. They are exhausted, they are desperate, and they are losing. They have tried everything. In 1941, the Royal Navy installed Aztec sonar on every escort vessel. This active sonar, the ping familiar from war movies, can detect a submerged U-boat at 2,500 yards. But it has a fatal flaw. It only works if the submarine is directly ahead. The U-boats, masters of the deep, quickly learn to attack from the stern or the beam, staying outside the narrow Aztec cone. Worse, Aztec is completely useless against surfaced U-boats attacking at night, which is exactly how the wolfpacks prefer to hunt. In 1942, scientists at the Admiralty Research Laboratory developed high-frequency direction finding, or HFDUF. This brilliant technology can track the U-boat's own radio transmissions, giving the escorts a bearing on their location. It works perfectly for locating submarines that break radio silence to report to headquarters. But once the Wolfpack achieves contact with a convoy, they stop transmitting. They just listen. And the Allied ships, they keep broadcasting their location with every single turn of their propellers. By early 1943, the Royal Navy has spent $8.7 million, the equivalent of $560 million, today trying to solve this acoustic signature problem. The consensus is grim. Professor Patrick Blackett, the brilliant director of Naval Operational Research, publishes a classified paper stating the problem in stark terms. Merchant vessel propeller cavitation and machinery resonance create underwater sound profiles detectable at extreme range. Without fundamental hull redesign, impossible during wartime production, convoys will continue to announce their positions to enemy hydrophones. The expert consensus is clear. You cannot make a 10,000-ton merchant ship quiet enough to evade hydrophone detection. It is a scientific impossibility. Dr. Harold Burrows, the Admiralty's chief naval architect, explains the physics in a memo dated February 14, 1943. A Liberty ship's massive propeller rotates at 76 revolutions per minute under load, displacing 22,500 tons of water through a 15-foot diameter screw. The resulting cavitation, tiny bubbles forming and collapsing on the blade surfaces, generates a massive field of broadband acoustic energy across frequencies of 10 to 100 kHz. It is not just a sound. It is a seismic event, and German hydrophones are optimized for precisely this range. Dr. Burrows concludes his report with chilling finality. Reducing propeller noise would require complete propulsion system redesign, 6 months of dry dock time per vessel, and manufacturing capabilities we simply do not possess. The stakes could not be higher. Britain imports 2/3 of its food and 100% of its petroleum by sea. In March 1943, German U-boats are sinking ships faster than Allied shipyards can build them. Gross tonnage lost exceeds gross tonnage launched for 3 consecutive months. At the Emergency Atlantic Convoy Conference held in London on March 4th, Rear Admiral Leonard Murray, commander of the Royal Canadian Navy's Atlantic Forces, delivers a blunt and terrifying assessment. Gentlemen, we are losing. Our escorts can't hear the U-boats because of our own convoy noise. The enemy can hear us from 50 miles away. Unless we solve the acoustic detection problem, we will lose the Atlantic by summer. Desperate ideas are thrown around the room, each more impractical than the last. A British naval engineer proposes installing sound dampening mounts on every single piece of machinery aboard every merchant ship. The estimated cost is $250,000 per vessel, with 12 weeks in dry dock. With 2,400 merchant ships in the Atlantic convoy system, it would take 138 years to retrofit the fleet. An American scientist suggests coating ship hulls with rubber to absorb the sound. This is tested and immediately rejected. The rubber degrades in salt water within weeks, creates massive drag, and reduces ship speed by 3 knots, making the convoys even more vulnerable. A Canadian engineer proposes redesigning all propellers with swept-back blades to reduce cavitation. It is an excellent idea, but completely unfeasible. It would require retooling every propeller foundry in North America and scrapping 14,000 existing propellers. By March 15, 1943, Allied naval commanders accept the grim reality. There is no technological solution. The experts have spoken. The science is settled. Merchant ships will continue to announce their positions to every U-boat within hearing range. The only strategy left is to add more escorts, more air cover, and hope that enough ships survive the slaughter to keep Britain in the war. But 800 miles to the west, aboard a Liberty ship struggling through a North Atlantic gale, a cook is about to prove every single expert wrong. Thomas Patrick Lawson does not have an engineering degree. He does not have any degree. Born in South Boston, Massachusetts, in 1915, Tommy Lawson was a child of the Depression. He dropped out of school at 14 to help support his family, his hands, even then, finding their place in a kitchen. He worked as a line cook at a local diner, slinging hash and eggs, then as a galley hand on coastal freighters, learning the rhythm of the sea from the bottom rung. When war broke out, he joined the U.S. Merchant Marine at 26. He was not driven by patriotism. He was not trying to be a hero. He joined because merchant ships paid $125 a month, triple what he made in Boston. It was a paycheck, albeit one earned in the most dangerous workplace on earth. His captain's evaluation from June 1942 was efficient and dismissive. Lawson, T.P. Ship's cook. Adequate performance. No leadership potential. Recommended for galley duties only. He was in the rigid hierarchy of a ship at sea, a non-entity. Nobody expects genius from the guy who makes breakfast. Nobody expects him to be paying attention to anything other than the next meal. But after the SS William Eustace survived 3 harrowing convoy runs to Liverpool, Lawson developed a strange, almost obsessive habit. During his off-watch hours, he did not join the card games. He did not sleep. He sat in the engine room listening. The other crew members thought he was crazy. "Tommy's going to get himself killed down there," said First Mate Robertson. "That engine room is hot as hell and twice as loud." The thrum of the turbines was deafening, a constant, bone-jarring roar that vibrated through the steel deck plates and into his very marrow. But Lawson was not there for the heat. He was there because, with a cook's intuition for subtle changes, he had noticed something. February 19, 1943. Mid-Atlantic. The William Eustace is traveling in Convoy SC-118, 63 ships in 9 columns, a massive, plotting target. A U-boat alert screams through the ship. Lawson, instead of heading to his muster station, ducks into the engine room. He crouches near the main steam line, the air thick with the smell of hot oil and ozone. The ship's engineer, a gruff Scotsman named Donald MacLeod, spots him and shouts over the roar of the turbines, "Get back to your galley. Cook, this is no place for the..." Whump. The ship shudders violently. A torpedo has struck a vessel 2 columns over. Through the thick steel hull, Lawson hears it. Not the explosion itself, but what comes after. He hears the sickening rush of water into the dying ship's hull, a strange, hollow, booming sound. And then, silence. The ship, which moments before had been a beacon of noise, simply vanished from the acoustic spectrum. The U-boat, he realized, could not hear it anymore. Lawson grabs MacLeod's arm, his eyes wide. The sinking ship, it stopped making noise. "Of course it stopped, you idiot," MacLeod yells, his face slick with sweat. "It is full of water." "No, I mean..." Lawson struggles to find the words, his mind racing faster than his tongue. When the water floods the hull, it stops the machinery vibration, it dampens it. The U-boat can't hear it anymore. MacLeod stares at him, baffled. So what if we could flood parts of our ship on purpose? Not enough to sink us. Just enough to silence the machinery noise. MacLeod's expression shifts instantly from confusion to pure contempt. "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. You are talking about sinking us ourselves. Get back to your galley. Now." But Lawson can't let it go. For the next 2 weeks, he obsessively sketches diagrams in a cheap notebook. He draws water-filled chambers built around the propeller shaft. He draws ballast tanks positioned directly against the machinery mounts. He designs controlled flooding systems. It is crude, but the idea is sound. He shows the diagrams to MacLeod, who dismisses him with a wave of a greasy rag. He shows them to the first mate, who laughs out loud. Finally, he musters the courage to show them to Captain Bannerman, who sighs, weary from the constant threat of death. "Son," the captain says, placing a hand on his shoulder, "I appreciate your initiative. But leave the engineering to the engineers. Nobody, absolutely nobody, takes the cook seriously." March 24, 1943. The battered SS William Eustace docks in Liverpool. The crew is given 48 hours of shore leave. While the other merchant seamen head for the pubs and the promise of solid ground, Tommy Lawson does something completely unauthorized, possibly career-ending, and in the eyes of military discipline, definitely insane. He washes his hands, puts on his cleanest uniform, and walks straight into the Western Approaches Command Headquarters at Derby House. He walks up to the reception desk, manned by a stern Royal Navy rating, and asks to speak to an admiral about U-boats. Tommy Lawson does not get to see an admiral. He gets arrested. 2 Royal Navy Shore Patrol officers, alerted to the bizarre request, intercept him in the lobby. "You can't be here, mate," one of them says, grabbing his arm with authority. This is a restricted military facility. Lawson, holding his notebook of diagrams, tries to explain. "I need to talk to someone about convoy noise," he insists, his Boston accent cutting through the British propriety. "I have an idea." The officer scoffs. "Everyone's got ideas, yank. Now, clear off before you are in real trouble." They are physically escorting him out the door when a sharp voice calls from across the lobby. "Wait." The speaker is Commander Peter Gretton, a 29-year-old Royal Navy officer who has commanded escort groups for 2 brutal years. He has just returned from the disastrous convoy ONS-5, where he lost 13 merchant ships to wolfpacks. He is exhausted, furious, and utterly desperate for any edge, any small advantage, against the U-boat menace. "What did you say about convoy noise?" Gretton asks, his eyes locking on Lawson. Lawson explains it all. The observation of the sinking ship going silent. The concept of using water itself not as a threat, but as a tool as acoustic insulation to dampen the machinery's vibration. Gretton listens, arms crossed, his face an unreadable mask. When Lawson finishes, the commander says flatly, "That is the most ridiculous thing I have heard this month. Water inside a ship is called sinking, Cook." "Not if you control it," Lawson counters, emboldened by desperation. Small chambers, welded around the propeller shaft bearing, set against the engine mounts. You are not flooding the whole ship, just creating acoustic insulation. Gretton is about to dismiss him to let the shore patrol finish their job, when he pauses. "Say that again." "Acoustic insulation," Lawson repeats. "Water absorbs vibration. It absorbs it better than air. If you position water-filled chambers against the noisiest parts." "I know what acoustic insulation is," Gretton snaps. His expression changes from skepticism to a flicker of something else. A wild, desperate hope. "Come with me." March 25, 1943. HM Dockyard, Liverpool. Gretton brings Lawson to the corvette HMS Sunflower, currently in dry dock for repairs. If this works, Gretton says, his career flashing before his eyes, and that is a massive if. "We test it here. Small scale. No one needs to know." For 3 frantic days, Lawson, Gretton, and the Sunflower's skeptical engineer, Lieutenant James Whitby, jury-rig a prototype. They weld empty oil drums around the corvette's propeller shaft housing, then fill them with seawater. They position heavy sandbags against the engine mounts to simulate the weight and mass of water bladders. It is crude. It is ugly. And according to every regulation in the Royal Navy, it is completely unauthorized. March 28th. They run the first test. Sunflower motors out into the Mersey River at low speed. A friendly submarine, HMS Trespasser, participates in the unauthorized test, submerging 500 yards away with its hydrophones active. Lawson stands on Sunflower's deck, holding his breath. Minutes later, Trespasser's captain surfaces and signals a message. Gretton reads it, his face falling. "Heard you clear as day. Engine noise, propeller cavitation. Same as always. Failure. Told you it was bloody stupid," mutters Whitby. But Lawson, the cook who pays attention to details, notices something. "We filled the drums when the ship was in dry dock," he says. "Look at the seams. They are leaking. They are not full now. The vibration, Just push the water out. We need to seal them. Make them watertight. Gretton runs a hand through his hair. If the Admiralty finds out I am modifying a warship without authorization, I will be court-martialed. If the Admiralty finds out you boats are sinking 20 ships a week because we were too proud to test a cook's idea, Lawson says quietly, we lose the war. Gretton stares at him for a long, agonizing moment. 3 more days, he says. Then this experiment ends. They work around the clock, this time with a new urgency. They weld sealed steel chambers. They find and add water-filled rubber bladders, pressing them against the engine mounts. They create what naval engineers will later, and formally, call liquid acoustic dampening. April 2nd, 1943. The second test. Sunflower motors out again, this time at full speed. Trespasser submerges, 1,000 yards away. 1 minute passes. Then 2. Then 5. No signal. Trespasser surfaces, a signal lamp flashing frantically. Gretton reads the message, and his face goes white. He turns to Lawson. They lost you at 400 yards. The submarine captain's full report is stunning. His hydrophones picked up nothing but ambient ocean noise. At 400 yards, the report reads, you disappeared. Whatever you did to that ship, it works. Lawson closes his eyes, his hands shaking. It works. April 3rd, 1943. The Admiralty Boardroom, London. Commander Gretton, his uniform immaculate, requests an emergency meeting with Rear Admiral Max Horton, the formidable and feared commander-in-chief of Western approaches. And he brings Thomas Lawson with him. The presence of an American merchant cook in the inner sanctum of the Royal Navy's war effort sends ripples of astonishment and horror through the Admiral's staff. A merchant cook, one aide whispers, his voice dripping with disbelief. Horton, a legendary submariner from World War I, enters the room, his face a granite mask. He is flanked by 3 other senior officers and, fatefully, Dr. Harold Burroughs, the same chief naval architect who had, just weeks before, declared acoustic dampening impossible. Gretton does not waste time. He presents the test results from HMS Sunflower. Hydrophone detection range reduced from 1.2 miles to 400 yards. A 97% reduction in the ship's acoustic signature. The room erupts. This is preposterous, Dr. Burroughs snaps, his face reddening. You have conducted unauthorized modifications to a Royal Navy vessel based on the suggestion of, forgive me, a cook. A cook who understands acoustics better than your entire department. Dr. Gretton fires back, his voice cold. Commander, you are dangerously out of line, barks Captain Edmund Rushbrook, the Director of Naval Intelligence. This kind of reckless experimentation, without peer review, without theoretical modeling, could compromise. Compromise what, sir? Gretton interrupts, his desperation overriding his discipline. Our current system of letting you boats hear us from 50 miles away, that system is working brilliantly, is not it? Admiral Horton raises a single hand. The room falls into immediate, stunned silence. He turns his piercing gaze not to Gretton, but to the cook. Mr. Lawson, explain it to me. Simply. Lawson stands, acutely aware that he is a 28-year-old high school dropout from Boston addressing the most powerful naval commanders in Britain. He clutches his notebook. Sir, he begins, his voice surprisingly steady. Ship machinery creates vibration. That vibration travels through the steel hull and into the water. The U-boats hear it. But water absorbs vibration. It absorbs it much better than air or steel. If you position water-filled chambers, barriers, right against the propeller shafts and the engine mounts, you stop the sound from ever reaching the ocean. You insulate it. It violates basic engineering principles, Dr. Burroughs insists, appealing to the Admiral. Water inside a ship's structure creates catastrophic weight distribution problems, stability issues, corrosion. You are advocating for flooding. Water in sealed chambers, sir, Lawson corrects him, his respect firm, but his facts unwavering. positioned specifically for acoustic dampening, not flooding. It adds weight, yes, but it is manageable. And we tested it. It works. One test, Buru scoffs. Under controlled conditions in a river with a friendly submarine. That is hardly conclusive evidence for a combat scenario in the North Atlantic. Horton leans back in his chair, his fingers drumming on the polished table. What would it take to retrofit a convoy? Captain Rushbrook throws his hands up in exasperation. Admiral, you cannot be serious. This would require modifying hundreds of ships, diverting precious steel, diverting dockyard resources, installing completely unproven technology based on the word of. Based on test results, Gretton interrupts again. Based on the fact that in March we lost 567,000 tons of shipping because they heard us coming. Based on the fact that if we do not do something different right now, we will lose this war by autumn. The room is silent. Dr. Burrows, seeing the tide turning, tries a different tack. Admiral, he says, his voice reasonable. Even if this concept has merit, the implementation is impossible. We would need to retrofit 2,400 merchant ships. The dockyards are at capacity. The steel is needed for new escort vessels. We are asking for a minimum of 6 weeks in dry dock per ship. It is logistically. It does not take 6 weeks, Lawson says quietly. Every head in the room swivels toward him. Mr. Lawson, Admiral Horton says, leaning forward. The prototype on Sunflower took 3 days, sir. And we were making it up as we went. It is not complex engineering. You are just welding sealed chambers around existing structures and filling them with seawater. Any dockyard crew can do it in a few days. Any ship's engineer can maintain it. And he adds, sensing the moment, you do not need to retrofit every ship at once. Just enough to test it. One convoy. Test it in actual combat operations. The room hangs in suspense. Admiral Horton stands. Everyone else immediately rises. The Admiral walks to the tall window, staring out at the Thames for a long minute, the fate of the Atlantic resting on his shoulders. Finally, he turns. Commander Gretton, you will retrofit 6 merchant ships in convoy on 184, departing Liverpool in 8 days. Mr. Lawson, you will supervise the installation and train the engineers. Dr. Burrows, he says, fixing the architect with an icy stare, you will provide Commander Gretton with any technical support he requires, even if you think this is insane. If it works, we implement fleet-wide. If it fails, Gretton, you will spend the rest of the war commanding a minesweeper in the Orkney Islands. Clear. Crystal, sir, Gretton replies, his voice tight with relief. Horton looks at Lawson. Mr. Lawson, I do not know if you are a genius or a madman, but I do know we are desperate. Don't make me regret this. Lawson swallows hard. I won't, sir. From April 11th to 18th, the Liverpool dockyard buzzes with secret activity. 6 merchant ships SS Daniel Webster, SS James Herod, SS John Davenport, SS Samuel Eliot, SS Benjamin Kite, and Lawson's own ship, the SS William Eustace, received the modifications. The installation is, as Lawson promised, brutally simple. Teams weld cylindrical steel chambers, 24 inches in diameter, around the propeller shaft housings and fill them with seawater. They install water-filled rubber bladders against the main engine mounts and steam line supports. Total added weight per ship, 18 tons. Total installation time, 64 hours per vessel. The naval engineers are baffled. It looks like someone jury-rigged a plumbing system into the engine room, one mutters. He is not wrong. But the hydrophone tests do not lie. Before modification, a Liberty ship's acoustic signature is detectable at 11.7 miles. After modification, 0.4 miles. The ships have become 29 times quieter. They have become ghosts. April 22, 1943. Convoy on 184, a formation of 43 merchant ships in 9 columns, slips out of Liverpool under the protection of 6 corvettes and 2 destroyers. The 6 modified silent ships are spread throughout the formation, 2 on the starboard side, 2 port, 2 in the center columns. No one, not even the convoy commodore, has been told about the experiment. If the U-boats attack, the test will happen under the raw, unforgiving conditions of real combat. Far out in the Atlantic, German naval intelligence has tracked the convoy's departure. Wolfpack WWII Group Starling, consisting of 37 U-boats, deploys in a deadly patrol line directly across the convoy's expected route. The ambush is set. April 25, 1943. Mid-Atlantic 214 A.M. Aboard U-264, Captain Lieutenant Hartwig studies his charts. His hydrophone operator has been tracking the convoy's sounds for 6 hours, but his reports are becoming confused. Contact weakening. Hercaloon. The operator whispers, pressing the headphones tight. Original bearing 290, but the signal is intermittent. Some ships are very loud, some are almost silent. Looks frowns. Intermittent. That is impossible. Either you hear a convoy or you do not. Yes, Hercaloon, but I am tracking multiple signatures. Some ships are clear at 40 kilometers. Others, they disappear at 5 kilometers. It makes no sense. Looks orders U-264 to periscope depth. Through the spray, he sees the convoy's dark shapes, but something is profoundly wrong. His hydrophones should be screaming with the noise of 43 ships. Instead, he is only getting clear tracks on 27. It is as if 16 ships are acoustically invisible. No, not 16. 6. The other 10 are simply on the far side of the convoy, their noise masked by the nearer ships. But 6 ships, scattered throughout the convoy, are generating no acoustic signature at all. They are ghosts. Looks, a pragmatic hunter, makes a decision that will save Allied lives. He targets only the ships he can hear clearly. The modified vessels, quieter than the surrounding ocean itself, slip past the Wolfpack completely undetected. On April 27th, Wolfpack WWII achieves full contact and the battle begins. Over 18 hours of relentless attacks, they sink 9 merchant ships. It is a brutal, bloody loss. 3,200 men are forced into lifeboats, and 47,000 tons of cargo are sent to the ocean floor. But when the battle reports are tallied, a critical, unbelievable statistic emerges. Of the 9 ships sunk, 0 are the modified vessels. The 6 ships with Lawson's acoustic dampening system, despite being scattered in the thick of the action, survive untouched. When convoy on 184 reaches New York on May 7th, Commander Gredden immediately signals London. Modified vessels showed 0 enemy engagement despite comparable positions within convoy formation. Acoustic dampening effective under combat conditions. Recommend immediate fleet-wide implementation. The effect is immediate and seismic. The Admiralty compares the numbers. In March 1943, before Lawson's system, the average U-boat detection range was 11.4 nautical miles. The convoy loss rate per Wolfpack engagement was 31%. After acoustic dampening is implemented from May to July 1943, the average U-boat detection range plummets to 0.6 nautical miles. The convoy loss rate drops to just 4.7%. Ship losses are reduced by 85%. Meanwhile, U-boat losses increase by 400%. The hunters, robbed of their hearing, have become the hunted. U-boats that previously sat 50 miles away listening now have to close within half a mile, bringing them directly into the range of ASTIC, radar, and visual detection. The Wolfpack tactic collapses because submarines cannot coordinate attacks on targets they cannot hear. May 1943 becomes known as Black May in German naval history. Allied forces sink 41 U-boats, 25% of Germany's entire operational submarine fleet. Grand Admiral Karl Donitz writes in his war diary on May 24, 1943, the enemy has achieved technical supremacy, which has robbed the U-boat of its most effective weapon, surprise attack. Convoys have become nearly invisible to hydrophone surveillance. The old certainties have vanished. A captured German hydrophone operator from U-954 tells interrogators, "We could not understand what happened. Sometimes we heard a convoy from a great distance. Other times, ships were practically on top of us before we detected them. It was as if the ocean had become silent." By July 1943, 847 Allied merchant ships have received the $2,000 modification. By the war's end, over 2,000 ships are fitted with it. The system is estimated to have saved 4,200 merchant seamen who would have otherwise died in sinkings. The Battle of the Atlantic, while not over, has been decisively turned. And the humble hero Thomas Patrick Lawson received the British Empire Medal in June 1945 at a quiet ceremony in London. He refused interviews. He refused publicity. When the New York Times asked for an interview in 1947, he declined, saying, "I just noticed something and mentioned it. Other people did the real work." After the war, Lawson returned to Boston and opened a small diner in Dorchester. He married, had 3 children, and never spoke publicly about his contribution. His own wife did not learn the full story until 1978, when a British naval historian tracked him down. Lawson died in 1991 at age 76. His obituary in the Boston Globe described him as a retired restaurant owner and merchant marine veteran. It made no mention of the acoustic dampening system. No mention of the 4,200 lives. No mention of the fact that a high school dropout with a notebook changed naval warfare forever. At his funeral, 3 elderly British naval officers attended. Men who had served on convoy escorts in 1943. Men who survived because U-boats could not hear their ships approaching. One of them placed a small note in Lawson's casket. It read, "Because of you, we came home." Today, every surface warship in the U.S. Navy operates with the Prairie Massacre Noise Reduction System, a direct descendant of the water-filled chambers a merchant cook sketched in a notebook 80 years ago.